Well, hello and welcome to today's Alpha Anywhere demo and Q&A webcast. I'm Dave McCormick, VP of Product Management here at Alpha Software, and I am pleased to present Dion McCormick, no relation, our lead solutions engineer here at Alpha. Today, Dion will go over some questions that had been submitted earlier via email. Always a good idea to get your questions in via email. And after that, he'll be willing to take your questions live. And right now would be a great time to submit those questions. Go ahead and type your questions into the questions box of the GoToWebinar control panel. So let us begin. Hello, Dion, are you there? I see you are, but you seem to be on mute.
You are correct. I was overly aggressive muting there. No, doing great. Thank you very much, Dave. And
Great.
excited about today. Yeah.
Let me go ahead and make you the presenter. You should see a dialog box on your screen.
There we go. Should be showing up there.
Yep, it sure is.
Good. Hopefully not scaring anybody. So from that. But wanted to say thank you and welcome to everybody for joining us. We have a fun-filled, fun-packed meeting today to go over a bunch of questions that came in. No preset demo because we had some excellent input from the field and some questions that I'll go over today. And as always, we enjoy your questions. We like them either before or during. So take the time to go to your GoToWebinar control panel, open up the questions section, and submit your questions in. Let us know if you can't see that. The GoToWebinar has been modifying their control panel, so we're trying to get a mastery of that there. But we love your questions, and obviously as we go through the presentation today, feel free to add any kind of questions or, put those in, and we'll make sure to try and cover them today. If we can't cover them today, we will follow up with you on that. A couple of things real quick. Wanted to follow up last week, which was very fun. Where was that? Let me see here. There we go. Last Thursday, we had a demonstration of the two new features from version 4.2, which included the improved HTML reporting and also the video recording and disconnected applications. It was done by Mr. Selwyn Ravens, and we were very excited to have Selwyn online, taking the time out to visit with us, and went really well. Got a lot of feedback. We had a huge attendance at that meeting. We were very excited and very happy to have that many people interested in these new capabilities there. Dave, any other comments on that? Or
there is a recording currently available, so if you go to videos.alphasoftware.com, if you can't find it there, just send an email to guides, G-U-I-D-E-S, @alphasoftware.com. And so when went over features in version 4.2. So there were two in particular. One, he spent a little bit of time covering the new reporting capability of being able to generate paginated HTML reports in mobile applications, which is great because it meant you didn't have to rely on the PDF viewer that may or may not be present on all devices. There wasn't a lot to go over there, because it was pretty easy to demonstrate. So he spent the rest of the session going over video capture, and he actually built an app from beginning to end that handled offline video capture. So very interesting presentation. Again, you should find it at videos.alphasoftware.com, but if you can't, send me an email to guides, G-U-I-D-E-S, @alphasoftware.com. Thanks, Dan.
Absolutely, and the video recording is super critical because obviously more and more content on the web is going video, and as we've mentioned before, video can be very powerful in inspection applications because sometimes a static image really doesn't tell the whole story. And now with the ability to remotely disconnected record video and then have it sync up with the back end in an automated fashion is really going to unlock a lot of capabilities in different types of applications. So beyond inspections, there's a whole range of new applications that can open up with this. I mean, I see even like I was watching the news last night, and they're encouraging more and more people to take videos, and they have apps that they can connect like to the local TV local TV station, and people out in the field can be taking pictures with things and then taking videos and submitting them in through an app that then show up on the local TV because they're looking for content there. So a lot of very exciting new capabilities that are opened up by this, and we're very, very excited about it. So if you haven't had or if you were busy last Thursday, didn't have the opportunity to go in and check it out, please, please go check it out, because I think it'll be worthwhile and you'll see more and more application of these functions. And it also shows how Alpha continues to move the development environment and the ecosystem forward to enable new and better and more powerful applications. So pretty exciting stuff there. So that, and then as always, go to alpha. If you can, let me go over here. Sorry, I should have already had this up, so bear with me. But if you go to alphasoftware.com, and it's coming up within a couple months now, is the Alpha DevCon. I've gotten some emails out with some special deals that you should check out, but we have that coming up in the September timeframe. And of course, we're wrapping up. We've actually finalized the training content, specifically the mobile optimized form application that you will be building, and this will allow you to master those capabilities. So you can just go to the training section here and then register for training. There's a little video introduction, and we'll be updating this as we continue to get them closer with even more content, but it's really going to be a great day, and we're very, very excited about everybody attending this. So again, go to alphasoftware.com, click on the DevCon, register now. It's going to be both a phenomenal conference, but also a phenomenal training experience. Okay, so today we have Q&A. Specifically, I don't have any preset demo because during this week we had an awesome set of questions come in. And I'm in a little memory lane for anybody. I'm not sure if anybody's David Letterman. So I'm not sure if you're a Dave Letterman fan, but we got letters this week, so we want to go through those and answer those. I've got a number that I've written down here, plus there was one other that came in that I'm going to talk about. But these are the kind of questions that are coming in, and we're very, very happy to do so. I'm going to take each one of these. The benefit of this, too, is to kind of show a specific functional capability. So I'm sorry, there's a lot of text on here, so bear with me as I go through this here. But someone has built a UX connected to a SQL table. So they have a form connected to the SQL table, and they want to have a drop-down box that then navigates them to a specific record instead of having to go through the forward and next. So I'm going to go through a real quick demonstration, only take about 2 to 3 minutes to build, to show you how easy it is to build a UX form. And for people who are new to Alpha, UX is our form component that is connected to a database table that then allows you to navigate both in a forward and next, but also add a drop-down that allows you to then navigate directly to an individual item. Then I'll come back with the other Q&A items. So I'm going to go over into my development environment, and this is for individuals who are new. This is our development environment. I'm at the Web Projects Control Panel. I'm going to click New, and in this case I want a web component, and click Next. In this case I'm doing a UX, which is our form control, and I click Next. Now we have a whole bunch of templates, but I'm going to start with a blank UX component. Starting from scratch, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay, so we have a blank UX builder. There's some, always you should note, there's some nice videos. You can click right here to go in to see videos and some more information about how to build disconnected. So there's a lot of help and other things there, but if I go to controls, you'll notice it's blank. Now I could go in and connect this to the data set and then go in and start adding text boxes, etc. But I'm going to make this a data-driven form, and I'm going to use our Genie to do that. And therefore, you're going to see how easy it is to build a data-bound form to the database. So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to click text box. So I'm clicking any data control here. Now, before I go ahead and type in any controls, you'll notice down here there's a neat little feature called Populate Lists from a table. So I can click on here, and it opens up a little Genie, and it's asking me, okay, where do you want to get, which table, which database are you connecting to for this? So I have my connection string, which I've already built. In this case, it's connecting to a SQL database. And once I've said, okay, I'm going to that SQL database, the next thing it's asking me is, well, okay, what table name? So I click there. It opens up a list of tables, and also if I wanted to see Save Use, I could click here. So what I've done here is by merely telling it which database, when I clicked on table name, it now shows me all the tables that are available. And in this case, this is the Northwinds database there. So let's say I want to have a list of customers. I want to create basically a customer editor. So I click Customers. Now it's asking me, do I want all fields or some fields? I'm just going to say all fields to make it simple here. And you'll also notice, and this is kind of a version 4.0, Alpha added in these other selections. Should you include data binding? Yes, I want it to automatically bind all the controls it creates there. But also it's going to add what's called a load primary keys, where it's going to automatically load up the first record and get everything going there. Also, do I want to have an automated save? So if you edit it, you can go ahead and save that. And do I want record navigation buttons? So the cool thing in 4.0 is that before you could always do what you see up top up to here, meaning you could put fields, you could connect it to it, but now they added the ability to do these other things, i.e. the primary keys, submitted data, and navigation. So now I click OK. You'll notice it's put a list of the fields that it found in that database, including its data type, and I click OK, and in a few moments it's generating everything for me. I'm going to have a fully data-bound editable UX with zero coding, and that's always a nice thing. So if I want to put together a real quick editor, I just merely go through, do this. So you'll notice that it's created a set of controls. It made them all text boxes. The reality is you may want to use different controls. You can always edit that. But also if there's images, it's created data-bound images. You'll notice that I have my submit and reset. I have my new record and delete record and my first next. So it built all of these controls for me. So let me go ahead and do UX from DB fields underscore UX. Okay. So now if I go in there and I show you how this works, you'll notice that all of a sudden I have all my data. I can click next, next. It will walk me through all those fields. Very easy to do. If I want to, I can go in here, modify some data, click submit. And you'll notice that it submitted that data back to the database, and I had to do zero coding. Now, obviously, we want to do a lot of cleanup. We'd want to put the field names in front of it, probably line them out a little nicer, maybe make things a drop-down box. All that's easy to do, but the neat thing is you don't have to rewire all the data loading. It's all done for you. So the question was, well, that's great, but now I have to go through and now there. I want to be able to select quickly a person, or in this case, a company, from like a drop-down and have it go directly to that. Well, how do I do that? Well, there's a neat function built into Alpha. So let's go ahead and go back into the design. And actually, before I do that, David, just wanted to check on process, visual coming through, audio.
Oh, that's good.
Okay, okay, good. Don't want to jinx it. But so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take, and I'm highlighting all these, and I'm going to put in, I'm going to go here to containers and put into that frame, and I'm going to call data. Okay, so I'm just putting all this stuff in a frame. Now what I'm going to do is I want to add a drop-down box that I can select the customer, and then it will automatically take me right to that customer so I can edit them. So I'm going to go to Data Controls, go to Drop-Down Box, and I'm going to call this Drop-Down Box Customers. I just use some abbreviations for my own purposes. Click OK. Now it's in this, so I'm going to move it up so it's above this. So now if I do working preview, you'll see I've got a drop-down box, and then I have all my data in this little form. And obviously nothing very exciting because nothing shows up on that. So what I'm going to do now is the next thing I want to do is I'm going to take that drop-down box. I'm going to go to Choices over here. So this is how I tell it what do I want populated in that drop-down box. Click there. Now I can put a static list, customer 1, customer 2, etc. Not very useful, but handy sometimes. I want to use dynamic in this case where it will automatically populate that from the database. So now that I've clicked dynamic, you'll notice that it has modified the Genie here. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to select my connection string, much like I did to begin with, tell it which database, data source in this case, because in the future you could be a web service or a NoSQL database. That's all these things. Next it's asking me the SQL statement. So in this case, it brings up a Genie, and I'm going to say, okay, I want to select from the customers table since we want to select customer here. And the field to display I'm going to go ahead and do is company name, but behind, so if I do that, it's going to do there, but behind the scenes, I actually want to select the customer ID. So what this says is look in the customers table, bring back the company name and customer ID, show the company name, but when I select the company, set the value of that drop-down box to be the customer ID. That way I have a foreign key relationship kind of structure set up from that. So I'm going to click OK, click OK, click Save, and now when I do a working preview here, you'll see now I have a nice drop-down box here. This drop-down box has all of the different company names, and I can just select a customer name. Nothing happens yet. You'll notice when I select it, nothing happens. But behind the scenes is it's set the value of this to whatever the company name is. So for instance, Alfred, this has been set to Alfkey. If I select, let's say, Anna Truo, that's been set to there. So I've got, this is nice, but the thing I want to have happen is when I select a customer here, I want it to actually take me to that record so I can edit it. So with that in mind, what we're going to do is add a little piece of action JavaScript, which will then set that up. So I go to Design. I'm going to go to my drop-down customer. And what I want to be able to do is that you'll notice that on there, there's a whole set of JavaScript events here. And I could do the click event, but I don't really want to do a click event. I only want it to update what record I'm looking at if I do a on change event. So I'm scrolling down here to the on change event, because every time I clicked on there, it would fire that off if I did the click. But this will only fire when I've changed the value of the drop-down box. So I found the sort of the behavior I want to trigger this on. I'm going to go ahead and open this up here. Now I've got add new action, and this is the only tricky part, and I'm sure why the individual couldn't find it is that you would think it would be like filter this, but there's actually a function here called get primary key values for records in a query. So that's the tricky part, is I kind of was aware of where to find this, but you want to use this function here. So what this does is this is a very sophisticated action JavaScript that basically grabs, updates the primary keys, what's shown in my form done there. But the powerful of it is that I have a search field function, meaning that if I were just to click this action here, it would just reload all customers in that form. So then I could walk through all the customers. But if I have defined search fields here, I can go in here, I can add a new search field. In this case, it's off my drop-down box of customers. And I'm saying, take the value of what's in the drop-down box and search my customer ID field. So what's on the left side are my controls. And the cool thing about this is you notice I only have one control, but I could actually have multiple controls sort of setting filtering criteria. And I could say, okay, this control filter on this, and it will run this and basically apply all those filters to it. So let me go ahead and click OK. So now what happens is when I click that drop-down box, it's going to reload the primary key list, i.e. re-extract from the database and put into the UX the different fields, or the different records. But in this case, what it's going to do, which is very powerful, is that it's going to filter that before it does it, and I click OK. And now if I click OK and I click Save, you'll notice now when I go into working preview, you'll see this here, we're on the first record. Now I go into, say, Bon App, and you'll notice that there was a little bit of a delay, because what it did is it went back to the database, filtered it and said now, and so now I have Bon App here. So I can go to, let's say, Chop Suey Chinese, I can go to Anna Truo, and now I have the ability to navigate or filter what I'm editing here using this capability. As you can see, very easy to do, no coding that's associated with it. So let me run through exactly how that works again. So when I built this, the system automatically gets the primary key. So what happens is when it loads this UX, it will automatically grab all the records in the database and queue them up so that they're available for me to edit it in the UX. So there's no filtering going on there. It's basically bringing all of them in there. What I did then was I created a drop-down box that was linked to the customer ID, i.e. would show the customer name, but behind the scenes it would have a customer ID. And I created a get primary key values for records and query function that instead of bringing everything back, I apply a search criteria where what it does is it takes the value of whatever's in DDB customers, my customer drop-down, it then field searches that customer ID and off to the races and does there. By the way, there's a lot of control over it. is that there's a whole bunch of different ways you can optimize this. So in this case, it's doing a exact, like it could be equals for exact, it could be contains in, could be wildcard. You can make things case sensitive. A lot of control on that from that standpoint. You can also do things like range searches. So let's say it had like a low amount and a high amount. You could do that. That's really simple, but I'll leave this for right here. So to answer the individual's question, in order to do that, I would create a drop-down box, link it to your primary key, and then use this function, get primary key values, or this action JavaScript, get primary key values for records and queries, and that will automatically do all the work. And the cool thing about that is you have no coding. Let's say I go to Berglund's, and I change say the region code, and I submit it. It handles everything for me and everything that's associated with it, easy. And by the way, this is a drop-down control, but there's nothing to be said that that couldn't be a list control or some other method of displaying that to the individuals. The other thing that's powerful about it too is that I have everything on one page, but there's nothing to be said where I couldn't set up a set of panels, have my selector on one panel, my detail on the other, and so there's a lot of flexibility on how you lay this out. But hopefully that gives a little bit more information in terms of this. So a couple lines of text, but that's a lot there about how you can use a drop-down box to then select a specific record you would like to do that. So that's there. And so if you have any questions on that, I'm going to go on to the next couple, but go ahead and put them into the GoToWebinar question and answer area. I'm going to go through these next ones pretty straightforward. They're a little simpler. Next is, can I open a Windows Explorer window with a button click in a UX in Alpha Anywhere? And the answer is yes and no. I'll start with the no. If you're doing a web-based application, there's certain limitations that the browser, you can't really talk to the hard drive and other things like that for security purposes. But if you are doing a desktop application, there's a whole set of functions that are in it, and they're on our documentation center, that allows you to talk to the operating system. And you can do file manipulations. You could actually you could launch applications within it, and they're all found within the documentation system. So I'm going back into my development environment. I'm going to help open documentation, and it's going to take me to our new and improved and awesome documentation system here. I'm a little slow because there. I'm going to go ahead and search on this, which is, what is that, sys.open, I think, of what it is. Let's try sys. And system function. I'm sorry, Dave, I'm not making it look good. There you go. Okay, so it's under system functions. So you have to do a trial and error, but the nice thing is we have a Google-like search capability there. So I'm going to go into system functions, and as you can see, we have a whole host of built-in functions. FTP, file name, file functions, system functions, etc. So I can go into system functions here, and as you can see, you can use, which I like here, is say system open. You can do system shell, which will run a program returning the H-wind of the program, a handle to it. So I would look for the system_shell function. But again, you're not going to be able to do that within a browser because they really don't want people mucking with people's machines through your web browser. So that would be an aspect you'd have to. But if you're building more of a desktop solution where you're going to run it on the desktop, then all of these, you can send keys, you can send shell things, whole bunch of capabilities. By the way, this is applicable in the application server. So you may have a situation where you have a desktop web solution where when someone clicks something on the front end, you actually want a program to be run on the application server. Well, you can use these same techniques using an XBasic callback to do things along those lines. So again, check out the system shell, but I really just caution you that there's certain limitations when you have a desktop web. If you're doing a web application, you're really not going to be able to talk to the operating system because of the constraints that are associated with the security system there. Okay, next question is, can I add multiple buttons or multiple static texts at once? The reason that's kind of an interesting question is that, let's say I'm going to create a new component here, and I'll go to UX, and you'll notice that like when I create a control here, text box, I can put in a whole series of text boxes, create them all at one time. But if you go down to say the other controls to a static text, you'll notice that it actually immediately creates one at a time. So it's not too hard. You can double click, you just click on them really quickly, those kind of things. So there's no way to really bulk create those in here. It's more of, you have to go then here and edit the value there. So there are some programmatic ways to do it, but it's a little bit beyond the scope of this. But at this point, I really don't know of any other way but then just to kind of click this multiple times to make it happen.
You could also do like 10 of them and then copy and paste
Yes,
them.
exactly. That's the other thing is you could highlight a whole series of these, go to Menu, copy selected controls to the clipboard, and then notice it takes the secrets, XBasic background, how it's actually what the machine sees, copies them there. I can go here and then do a menu paste, and it's going to rename them because they have to be unique, but now I have a whole set there. So yeah, Dave, absolutely, you can use copy and paste. And what's nice too is that let's say you have a form here, I can sit there and say menu, copy selected to controls, and then I could go up here, create a whole new UX, let's say a blank one here, and then I can go to my controls here and I can paste those so I don't have to stay within the same UX. I can literally recreate all these by pasting them into a different UX. And there's ways also to save templates and stuff, but those are some quick shortcuts on how you can create multiple controls, especially if you have a set that you use every time. You could preset them and then copy them and paste them into your system. Makes it pretty simple from there. Okay, so the next question I had was, can I make a checkbox read-only? And the answer is that's actually very simple to do. What we'll do is I'll go ahead and go into my example I was showing you right there. This is my one right here. I'm going to go ahead and add a checkbox from the data controls, so checkbox. Let's call it checkbox for excitement there. And you'll notice that then now I have that control here. Now, on the right-hand side are all of the different properties that are available for that control. And so I could go through and search all these properties, but it kind of gets time-consuming. So I'm going to click here, and I'm going to go Enable. And you'll notice when I started typing that property, it found a property, in this case, Enable Expression, on the client-side properties. So I typed, as you noticed before, here are all the different properties that are in this particular control. And they can vary from control to control. So now I want to go Enable, and then when I double-click on that, you'll notice that the Properties window automatically took me to that location here. And it's under Client-Side Properties, Enable Expression. So the easiest way to make that read-only is just make an expression 1 equals 0, and what will happen is it analyzes this expression, and it then says, oh, false, okay, I'm not going to enable your control. So that's a fast and dirty way to do that. So I'll go here, open this up here, and you'll notice, oh, you know what I have to do? On my checkbox, I have to actually put my choices here. Yes. 1, no, 2, I'm sorry, 1, 0. And the other thing I like to do, and this is a little trick, is that this is numeric, and I want to treat this as a logical field. So now when I go in and do that, it will show up properly here. So you'll notice I have here, but I can't select it. I'm clicking on it, and nothing is happening. If I go back in here, back to that enable expression, say 1 equals 1, now when I go back into here, and I click on here, you'll notice that I can select it. Now the power of this, to kind of expand on that, is that if I just wanted to hard code it to be 1 equals 0, I could do that. No big deal. But this actually is far more powerful. I'm going to go ahead and click the ellipsis here, and it's going to open up there. And so now I can create an expression based upon what else is in my system. So I'm going to sit there and say customer ID is equal to alpha key. Okay. So what I've done is I've created an expression here, and this could use session variables, and you could use JavaScript, you can use a whole bunch of different things in here. But it basically says if the customer ID here, this other field on my, is equal to alpha, then the checkbox is enabled. So now when I go in here and let's see if this works okay. So you'll need to notice alpha key. Aha, I can check that. Now watch, I'm going to navigate to the next page. Now my field here is Annotar, or ANTR. I'm going to call it Annotar. I'm sticking with that. But you'll notice now I can't select this checkbox. So the client side enable expression is very, very powerful because it allows you not only to put in like fixed ones, but also have it dynamically by what's available in that form. So as you select certain things, you can say, well, they're not allowed. If, let's say, they select a first drop-down box that says, are they a business user or a personal user, then you may show and hide, or you may enable a whole set of questions based on that. So you can encode that kind of form logic using this methodology. Very straightforward. So that's how I make checkboxes read-only, and I can also make them read-only dynamic by merely using a expression to handle that. So I hope that answers that question there. So the next question, and again, if I'm kind of moving through these quickly, not taking questions yet, so if you have a question on something I did, put into the web control panel for GoToWebinar, and we'll come back to that. So the next question is style editor. Can I turn off text shadowing, in this case for a particular text item there? So let me go ahead and come up here. I'm going to go ahead and include a text card here, and I'm going to call this and say, hello webinar folks. Okay. I'm going to go to properties here, and right now I'm going to select, the person was using iOS 7. So let's look and see what that looks like under iOS. Okay. So you have hello webinar. Oh, let's do a live preview. Let's see, that may be a little bit more representative of what it will look like. So bear with me. Live preview runs it in a web browser. In this case, I'm using Firefox, but you could also use Chrome for this. Okay. So you'll see that it's got a specific formatting. And this formatting has a little shadowing to it, and that is dictated by the specific defaulted class that's associated with this type of control. So if I go back into design, I go back to my controls, you'll notice over here that when I go to the class button for this static text, it says default. And so what it's going to do when it says default is it's going to then look at my master CSS. So when I was on the properties tab over here and I selected a style name from here, that basically includes a CSS file, and one of those elements of that CSS file is static text, how it's represented. So therefore, when this actually goes in, it's going to use the default style for whatever one I pick to render that. Now to just get rid of that altogether, I can just highlight that, and now it doesn't have any class, so it's just going to present actually in, and I don't know if you'll see a much big difference on it here, but now it won't use that default class, which may have shadowing, and it's going to use whatever the standard web control is our web style is to display that. But now you have complete control. You can either add your own classes in, so you can create your own class to highlight that text, or another way is you can just click the style button here and say, let's say I want that color of that to be red, and I want to say the alignment, I won't worry about that, but I'm going to say the weight is going to be bold. So as you can see, if I want to, I have complete control over the styling of everything on here. I can either take the default, or I can go in and add my own style, or I could define my own class and apply that class. And so now when I go into working preview, you'll notice that my text looks a little differently here. You'll notice I'm not using the default style, so if it had a text shadowing or something like that, it's been turned off. And now I can completely set that up where it's bold and red in terms of my style. So that's a quick and dirty. Now, I would highly recommend that instead of doing the style this method, that you create a class. If I click on here, you'll notice that these are all your standard styles that are available because I selected iOS 7. But you can click here and edit your local CSS and create your own styles there that may be specific for this. So you can either associate your own style file, or you could then create your own local CSS. The reason that's powerful is that if I go in here and say, let's call it Dean's style, now I can put that in there, and then I can copy that style and put it on anything else. And if I ever change that one style, all of those fields that use that class would then apply it. Otherwise, what I need to do is copy this out and say go to another text box and copy it in. And if I want to change the color from red to blue, then I'd have to go through every single one. So classes are really powerful because you centralize your style management in one place. So a bit long-winded, but that's how you would get rid of the default class. You would then either override it with your own class or with the style, and then you're going to have essentially any kind of capability. And by the way, that's not only just for text, but that's for drop-down boxes, for buttons, for anything you want. So what's really cool, if you start using Bootstrap themes, which by the way, at the Alpha Development Conference, we're going to start talking about how to integrate Bootstrap technology into your solutions. But the benefit is you can use all these beautiful Bootstrap button styles and things like that right in your applications, and we're going to demonstrate that at the Developers Conference. It's really going to be a fun session. So
Ian, while
yes.
you're on that screen,
Yes.
can you also show people how to do copying and pasting a particular element? Like, let's say, for example,
okay.
you did decide you were going to put style into all of those text boxes. Could you show a quick, easy way to do that without having to type them in?
Here you go. If I can type here.
Yeah, there's my another question, sure.
There you go. So now notice when I created that, it set the default style to be there and no style management. So now if I go to working preview, I've got here, but now it's using the defaulted style. So what I can do is I can click on my original source text. I can click on style here, and you'll notice up here there's a little button here called, it's like an eyedropper. And so what I can do is I can select the style there. I can actually go here and, let's see, paste the current property value here. Yep. So what I'll do is I'll go here. I'm going to select the style I want to copy. So this is the style I like. So now I go here. Notice it brings up and it has a list of all my different things here. I can select where I want to copy it to. So again, the steps are select the thing you want to copy on the control. So this is my control. I like how it looks. It's perfect. So I select the property over here. I click the little eyedropper. I select, or I could shift select, by the way. I'm not limited to just one. Here, click Set Properties, and you'll notice now it copied that property over here, and that applies for all the properties. There's another function for doing JavaScripts. There's certain properties that don't copy over, but the simple ones, like it could have been class, I could have set up a class and done the same thing. Now when I do my working preview, I didn't have to re-edit that. Now it's matching up in terms of the coloring and everything else associated with that. So again, you select what you want to copy, in this case the style from this one control, click there, select where you want to copy it to, click Set, and now it will copy that style from that to that control. Big time saver, especially when you're doing things like setting the width of things, or you're setting like for instance, let's say I want this static text to be only like 50 pixels. So I can go up here and I say the width is equal to 50 pixels. Okay, so now when I go look at this, it's going to look kind of screwy. Notice there. But let's say I wanted those, so I can go, oh, you know what? I like that 50 pixels. Copy. Select where I want to copy it to. Let's say I want to copy it to all these things here. Click Set Properties. Go back to Working Preview. And you'll notice now all of these controls, including my text and my ones, are now limited to 50 pixels. And I could do that and go, oh, that doesn't look really good. Let me go back here and make this 200 pixels. And then I go here. Notice something kind of cool. It remembers your last selection. And then click Set Properties. Now when we go back into Working Preview, you'll see that now these are a little longer and it's extended it out. So when you're doing those fine-tuning adjustments and things like that, that's a really powerful solution to do that. Did that answer your question, Dave? And I'm just Josh.
Indeed.
It wasn't. Okay, there. How about that? Do you feel better? I feel better there. Okay, one last question. And there's a very interesting question in regards to, and it's related kind of that first question, is that what the person wants to do, and I'll actually demonstrate it, it's a little easier to demonstrate this, is that, let me go ahead and modify one quick thing here. Okay. I've kind of pre-made this one. So, okay. So I have a situation where I just showed you there, where I have a form that's been data bound, and when I edit the form, I click Submit, you'll notice that it just stays in place. So I've edited this record, and it just stays and says edit there. Then if I want to edit the next record, I have to click next, and I go there and I say, okay, 3, 2, 1, submit, next, 1, 2, 3, submit, next. Well, the user who wrote in said, well, you know what I'd like to be able to do is after I edit this record, when I click submit here, I want it to automatically go to the next record. So I don't have to manually. So I guess this is a data entry app where someone's pounding data in, they want to go to the next record, next record, next record kind of scenario. So the cool thing about that is that it's actually pretty, there's two things you have to understand. Is one is that the cool thing about alpha is that everything is exposed. There's no hidden stuff. You know, you kind of have to know where to look at it. So the behavior is this, is that when I click the submit button, it's going to save the record, and at that moment in time, I want it to go ahead and do a navigation to go to the next step. So the first thing I do is I say, great, well, how do I do a navigation? So in this case, I look here to the button next that's on my user interface, scroll down over here to the click event, and you'll notice that there's just a little piece of JavaScript called dialog object navigate record, and then it has the text in there next. So when I click that button, all it's doing is firing off this little piece of JavaScript to move to the next record. And then it handles about re-rendering the screen. As you can see, it does a lot of things there. So what I want to have happen is when the person clicks submit here, I want it to do this activity. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that out and put it on the clipboard. Now I could go to the submit button here, go to the click event here, and then add that in like this. There's a problem though, is that when I submit it, it's doing a whole bunch of stuff. And that, so I basically said here, I want to submit it and then go to the next record. Well, the problem with that is that JavaScript is asynchronous, meaning that JavaScript doesn't wait for each command to complete. It just fires them all off, and so you get race conditions and other stuff there. So if I were to do this, it's possible that the submit event couldn't have been completed before I go to the next record. So that would be, I like to call, bad. So we really don't want to just paste that into it. But you're going to find something really cool. If you'll notice what's going on is that all the system is doing when you click on the submit button is doing a submit of the form to the system. So I'm going to go over here, and I apologize, I'm going a little late. Let me finish this up real quick. So I'm going to go to server side, and when the submit button, or when it submits, it runs what's called the after dialog validate. And if you're curious about what after dialog validate, we did a series about a month ago or 2 months ago that talked about all these different server side events. So it's on our videos.alphasoftware.com. Go ahead and check that out. But you'll notice that when the person submits it, it does a command called save data. So I'm going to go ahead and edit that action. What it's doing is you'll notice that after the submit, it's editing the record, but you'll also notice there's a whole bunch of really cool stuff here. You could show a confirmation message. You could actually have client-side events fire off after the save is done, and that's critical, is that these things after it happens. You could even control saying only do this if the save succeeded. If it didn't, do this. Then you also have server-side events where you can actually run xbasic back on the server. So you have a lot of flexibility here. So what I did is I said this. I go, okay, after save occurs, I want to, at that case, do a little function called next record. So I don't actually paste in that because that wouldn't make sense. What it wants is it wants a JavaScript function name that it will find. So I went ahead and called it next record. Then I went over here to JavaScript functions. I created a function called next record, and in there, this is where I pasted in that function. So now what's going to happen is when the person hits submit, the after dialog validate is going to run, and then when that runs and after the save occurs, it's going to this next record. Now if I really wanted to be sophisticated, I could go ahead and I could copy that and really do it only after the save succeeded, but I'm just going to assume it succeeded in this case here. When that happens, it's going to go over and look for this JavaScript function, run it, and in that case it's going to do next record. So if I haven't screwed up my stuff, you'll notice now that I'm on AlphaKey. I can change that, click submit, and notice what happened. Not only did it save the record, but it did a navigation to the next record. I can do the same thing here. There you go. So this is how I can add behaviors to that save. Pretty simple. Now, a couple things I want to go over real quick, one more minute, is that to kind of find out how to navigate to the next record, I didn't have to actually go look at the documentation. In this case, I just looked at the click event and found that JavaScript right there. And then the other thing I did was in the server-side event, execute server-side action, you'll notice that I am editing the record just submitted, but I also have the ability to do these other things here, so I added that function there. So I hope that that should answer the question on how to do that. So now they don't actually have to click next, they can do that. And so letters, we appreciate your Q&A. I actually apologize, I'll try to limit next time to like 30 minutes because we don't like to punish the people who are here. But people who, you know, send during the week, you gotta like it, you know, but we really want to make sure we cover all your questions. So with that, I'll give it back to Dave and open it up. I hope that's been helpful with some techniques and backgrounds. And we want to say thank you very much to that loyal listener, reader for sending those in to us.
Great. So here's a person who's asking about bringing sketch files into Alpha Anywhere for the US. They said that they love the background stuff, but they'd like to make it nicer looking front ends. Would Sketch be a way of doing that, or what do you suggest?
Absolutely. Sketch is really becoming a dominant tool. And okay, for people who aren't familiar with this, it's actually, if I'm not mistaken, isn't Sketch a Mac-only solution? Just to let everybody know ahead of time. But what Sketch is that out in the world right now, most people use Photoshop to design their user interfaces for apps. There's graphic designers are very comfortable with it. It's a tool they like. But what we're seeing is that there's such a demand for graphics and other things that are pre-ready to go for mobile that there are some plugins for Photoshop, but also some new tools have come out. And one is called Sketch. And Sketch is basically a Photoshop-like tool, but it's optimized for building user interfaces here. And the other thing that's powerful about Sketch is that it actually has the ability to export out a whole bunch of content that content then can be moved into a mobile solution. So the answer is absolutely yes. We don't have a preset workflow on how to do that, but again, we just take in images and CSS that is generated by these different technologies there. So you know, check out Sketch. It's a very powerful solution and being adopted by more and more graphic designers since it's really optimized for building mobile applications. It does allow you to export all the content. So like, for instance, it would export all the nice pictures and other things, and then you can import those into Alpha. Again, I apologize. I don't have an experience of moving them forward, but again, the content that Sketch generates is plain HTML, CSS, like pre-made images that can be copied into an Alpha solution, and then you need to open up the UX and kind of map the things into it there. So David, may be worthwhile to put on our future list to show how you could do something like that. With Photoshop, just to let everybody know, is that there are services that a lot of designers, they don't really know HTML and stuff, they really just know Photoshop. But what you can do with Photoshop, which is really cool, is that Photoshop can be dissected into HTML, CSS, and some other stuff. There's some off-the-shelf tools. There's also companies that offer services that do that. So the flow is usually you have a graphic designer design your user interface, and then you bolt it onto Alpha. And the cool thing about Alpha is that Selwyn and the team have been spending a huge amount of time making it easier and easier to do that because they understand that's the flow. But we should try and schedule up a session to kind of show how you could go through creating a very simple user interface and bringing it into Alpha with, say, Sketch or something, or Photoshop or something along those lines. So I'm not sure if I answered that individual's question, but the answer is there's no reason why you couldn't do it. We just don't have the data on how to do that at this time, or the experience, honestly, on how to do that. But cool tool. I played with it. It's really easy to use.
Oh, that's great. All right. I've got a good hardcore technical question here.
Yay.
Maybe we can tackle it this time. If not, we'll save it for next time. But this person wants to generate a report, and they want the report to be saved as a PDF in the file system, and then he wants the path to that PDF to be stored in a SQL table. So
okay.
And we were just wondering, how would you go about doing that?
Well, first and foremost, I would do it as an XBasic process. And actually, I think there's a good video on how to do that in the user interface. Let's see. Well, there's one to create a PDF and email it. Alpha 5, email, PDF. Or there's actually a really good video on that kind of shows you the technique. Videos on there. Which one is it? Oh, why is that? Let's get you know what? I'm going to take that and come back to that. I don't know if the person's super urgent, but I'd rather show how that works because that's a common use case I see out there, and I can actually show how it works. But the reality is what happens is that the on here you'll have a button, and that button is going to call an XBasic callback, so the actual work is going to be done on the server. And on the server, there's a way to run a report, save that report to the disk, and then get the name of that report, and then you can then run a insert it. So there's no pre-made action JavaScript that'll do all that at one time, but there definitely is the capabilities to do that, and I've done it before. So I'd have to just dig that out, and then I could walk you through how it's done and have a little example on that. That's probably the best to do it justice.
Excellent. Well, let's go get another question here. Someone was pointing out that they took your advice and got Navicat, and they are not disappointed.
Oh, good.
Navicat is a great tool for...
Blame Dave if you're unhappy.
If you're unhappy, it's my fault,
Yeah.
right? Here's a question. This probably had to do with what you were talking about earlier, but how does the get primary key function, how does that work with an offline local cache or with SQLite? Is it meant for that, or is that just a...
No, that is really meant for online because these behaviors are assuming you have a connection to it. Because every time it loads this form, or I'm sorry, here this get primary keys, those are kind of there. The other reason I did that is that this is using a static UX form. If you're going to do things like that, then what you want to do is use a list control, and with a list control you can create it as disconnected, and then there's a series, and actually let me go ahead and add a list control here. This should only take a few moments here. Actually, you know what? Hold on one second. I'm going to do it this way so it's a little clearer. Okay, so I'm going to create a new UX form because I want to start blank. Okay. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a list control, which is a type of data control, and I'll go list customers. Now I'm going to do the quick setup genie instead of having to do it manually. So I'm going to say, okay, I want to do the same thing. I want to connect it to my database. I want to get the fields out of my customers here. The fields I want are all of these right here. Okay. And then what I want to do is I don't want to do any filtering, but I do want to make this all persist data to local storage. Okay. So actually, let me do one other thing there. And I could have added a detail view for editing and stuff like that. I just didn't do that. But let me go to the list layout here and make it look a little cleaner. So I've got company name, contact name. Okay. So what I've done real quick is I've just created a disconnected list, which what it will do is when it runs, it made a call to the database, it pulled all that data, pulled it local, so all this data now is residing locally. And I'm only showing 2 columns, but behind the scenes are the other information that's associated with it. So now I can operate disconnect. I literally disconnect, and then I could click on these things, and if I had a detail view, it'd show up. There's no calls back to the server. Now the question is, okay, what I want to be able to do is filter this list right here. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and go in here. Let's go ahead and add a filter. We'll call it customer ID. Okay. And I'm going to go back into my actual list of customers here, go to my list layout, and actually add customer ID so we can see it. Okay. So this list of customers right now, because of time, this could be loaded with a client-side cache. So there's something called a client-side cache where I could pull list customers and kind of put them in there so they're available. But I'm going to make it simple for our purposes here and just assume the person's going to type in the customer ID to do a filter or search of list of customers. Now I'm going to go down here to and I'm going to add a button here. And so I've got a customer ID and a button. So let me show you what that looks like right now. So you'll see that it's pulled all my stuff here, and then I want to be able to say like Anatar button, and it would filter this list here. But the important thing I want to be able to do is I want to do that so I can do it disconnected, meaning I don't have to make a call back to the server. In this example over here, when I click this down and I run this function right here, this assumes that it has a connection to the server. It's going to make a call to the server. So if you're doing a disconnected app, it's going to fail and fail nastily, or it just won't work. and so the person will get confused. So let's go in here. Let me go to the button here. I'm going to go down here to the click event. Now the cool thing about disconnected is that I now have the ability to do a filter these records here. So I could start typing in filter, and there's one right here. Oh, filter records in list control. So I go ahead and open that one. But notice this is very important. It's like read the fine print. This action performs a server-side search on a list that's populated. So when I selected this one, filter records there, it's a server-side. But do not despair. If I just type in list, I have list control actions, and in here is a client-side filter list, and also server-side, but a client-side. So the cool thing about this is that you have to kind of know what you're doing, and then some of these functions kind of there. But now I can say client-side filter, so I can say, well, which list? List of customers. And now it's asking me which search field? Oh, customer ID. So now I'm saying, okay, I want to do a client-side disconnected search. I want to search the customers, and I want to use search field of that. And so I click Save. I go to Working Preview. And let's go ahead and just go in here and give that a try. Aha! Let's empty that out. Let's go A row. Now notice how fast this is, because there's zero connection to the database. All it's doing is in JavaScript locally within my browser. In this case, it's doing that. So as you can see, it's very easy to add these filtering criteria. Now this is pretty simple. If you notice, it's kind of a wildcard search. It's like just take this and look anywhere in there. If you want to get fancy on this, I could create another button, and I'm just going to point to this, not actually do it here. So I'm going to click on here, and I'm going to go to text mode, and I'm going to go down here to component method, and I'm going to type filter, and then we have a whole capability in here, filter list client side. Okay, and so there's some built-in JavaScript commands which give you a huge amount of more capability to do filtering. Here's the one I like to show on this, and this is done all local side. So I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to insert this in here. So don't despair, but this allows you to say get a list object and then set the filter and then execute that filter. And this can all be done client side. Just takes a little bit more research, but this allows you to do very sophisticated searches disconnected. So there's some simple ones in there which I highly recommend you use. But then also, if you want to do more sophisticated filtering client side, there are some really powerful, simple, it's called set filter, and it allows you to say, okay, like for instance, look for John and Smith and city and state. You could also do, if-then kind of filters and stuff like that. So very powerful ways to do that. But important thing is don't use this primary key values if you're disconnected. Use a list along with the, at least initially, the filter list client side. Now if you do know you're going to be connected server side, I would still stick with a list, especially for a mobile implementation, and use the server side, and that then does a callback to the server, so you have to be connected, but gives you a lot more flexibility and ease of use and more powerful. This one's fairly simplistic, but you can do pretty sophisticated stuff there. So that's how I would attack that problem if I wanted to do the same kind of job. And again, you'll notice that it showed the list, but I could easily have had a detailed view associated with this list of customers and be able to say, okay, narrow down the list, click on there, and show the detailed view and all those pieces that are associated with it.
That is great. Thank you. I have one last question, and the one that I think that we can get to in the 1 minute that we have remaining.
Yeah.
And earlier on, you were showing how you could copy and paste properties. I think you called it my annoying question. So the question here is, can you select more than one property to be copied at a time, or is it just a one thing?
It's just a single one. Yeah. It's there's no way to multi-select properties. Like I can't say, okay, select width and height. So you just select each individual one, click there, you can copy it, so yeah, it's a single select scenario.
Here's a question we can't get to because we have 30 seconds left, but one I'd like to get to next time, and that's On a UX, how would you hide or show buttons based on the user's login?
Yep, we'll cover that next time. It's a variant of the show. It's sort of like enable, but it's show hide, and we'll talk about how you can use what are called session variables to do that. But I want to do, you're right, I want to do it justice and talk about how do you set the session variable to be used later on.
That sounds great. Thanks, Dan, for presenting. We are out of time.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone who sent in questions. Please keep them coming. Guides, G-U-I-D-E-S at alphasoftware.com, and we will get your questions answered. Also, thank everyone else who just simply attended. Hope to see you at a future webinar. Our next one will be next Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. For a copy of this recording, please visit videos at alphasoftware.com. It should be posted in about a day, maybe two. Thanks again, and have a great day. Bye-bye.